Welcome everyone. So, in a move towards modern technology, I actually have the entire Shas on my iPad. It was a special deal Art Scroll was offering a few weeks ago, and I took it, so it makes it a little easier, a little lighter for me. I want to talk a little bit about the approach that we're taking in this group, in this class, because in yeshivas today, there are different ways that Gemara is actually taught, right? And some yeshivas believe that in the Limudei Kodesh half of the day, that you should be giving the kids many different subjects, a Chumash class, a Tanakh class, various other things, halacha classes, and so they get a broad look at all the different types of disciplines in terms of Limudei Kodesh, the holy studies. And there are some schools that believe that that side of the day should be taught Ivrit b'Ivrit, only in Hebrew. And then there are schools like the one that I went to. My yeshiva was Rabbi Tice's yeshiva in Elizabeth, New Jersey, and their attitude was to concentrate on the Gemara and make sure that the boys understood what they were learning. And the theory is that if you have a good grounding in Gemara, first of all, you learn how to think. I mean, that's what Mendel always says. That's why the Jewish lawyers are so successful, because they've been trained, their minds are trained. And then also, if you look in the Gemara, everything is there. They say in Pirkei Avos, turn it over, everything is in it. And we're going to get a little bit of that today. And so their attitude was the boys who were not really so intellectually inclined, or maybe they weren't thinking about studying beyond high school, so they got the broad spectrum, a whole bunch of subjects. But the smarter boys we got 4 hours a day of Gemara. That's basically what we got, and sometimes a little bit of something else, but basically that's what it was. And it was taught really in my early years. Some of the rabbis were not so great in English, so we did a little bit of Yiddish actually. And then later on, it was with the rabbis were American born, so it was translated into English primarily, and that was the system. So I'm not here to say what's better or what way, because probably your grandchildren have different approaches in their schools, but this is kind of what we did. And the other thing is that when you're doing the Gemara, you can just try to cover ground, right? You try to learn as much as you can. So the big example of that is Daf Yomi, where people try to learn a blot of Gemara, both sides of the page every single day. And they also, most people are limited in the amount of time they have, so they're going to try to cover that in 45 minutes to an hour, which is a lot. And then there are classes which are called Iyun, where you look deeply into it, so you begin to look at the sources that are given, because the Gemara is Torah Sheba'al Peh, right? It's the oral law, which was given at the same time as the written law, but you can always find sources in the written law for the oral law. And so if you're studying in depth, basically, you're going to want to look at those sources too. So what I want to do today is to maybe slow down a little bit and look at a sort of a different approach. We're going to go into the Gemara, look at some of the commentaries, primarily Rashi a little bit, and then when there is a quotation or a reference to a verse somewhere in Tanakh, whether it's Tehillim or in a prophet or whatever, take a look at that too, and get a look at what the context is. Okay, so we're going to do something a little bit different today, but bear with me, and I think it's going to work. So if you're using the English side of the book, you're in page 23, the third paragraph down. If you're in the Hebrew side, which is pretty much what I have, you're on Daf Dalet. We're on page 4, which is really page 3 because we start with 2. But it's Daf Dalet, Amud Beis, the back side, and there's a little bit of a little 8 on top of the page, right? And we're 12 lines up from the bottom. And we're starting with Amar Rabbi Elazar, right in the middle of that 12th line. Okay? With me, everybody? Okay. Omer Rabbi Elazar, Omer Rabbi Avina. So Rabbi Elazar is quoting Rabbi Avina. He says, Kol Omer Tehillah b'David b'chol yom sholosh pa'amim. Anybody who says the psalm which begins Tehillah l'David, and that really, we know it as Ashrei, because the first two lines are actually not part of the psalm. But anybody who says that particular psalm 3 times a day, Muftach lo shu ben olah haba. He is assured that he will merit the world to come. So this is not exactly meant to be taken literally, that if you act out all sorts of weird ways, but you say Ashrei 3 times a day, you're in good shape. That's not really what it means. But it says that if you do read it and pay attention to it and try to adhere to the principles that are expressed, that gives you a good leg up. Okay? So my time, why do we say that? Ilema mishum de asyo aleph base. So the Rashi, the Ashrei is alphabetical, right? And it's one of the few. There are only a few of all of Tehillim, 150 chapters of Tehillim. Only a few of them that are listed that way, that are alphabetical. And those of course are the ones that are considered to be the most beloved by David himself, who wrote them, because I guess he put a lot of work into it to put it together. And so why is that so special? It's because the Hebrew alphabet is supposed to have all the possible sounds that a human being can make, right? Not everybody can say ches, right? So if you have little kids that maybe haven't started at age 2 or 3 or 4 learning Hebrew, to get that ches into them, it's a very hard thing to do. So all the different sounds, and so that's why, for example, our aleph and our ayin, we say them the same, but you know that there are a lot of Teimanim don't say it that way, right? Ayin has that's right. So some have the ayin is more or less sort of a guttural, some a little nasal, you got a sort of nut in there. So if you're able to say all these different letters, you get all the different sounds that a human being can produce with his mouth, and therefore all those different sounds are ways that we praise Hashem. That's one reason why the Aleph base, why this particular chapter is so important. So, but the Gemara says, hang on a second. Nema Ashrei Tamimi Derech. So, Ashrei Tamimi Derech, that is Psalm 119. Ashrei is Psalm 145. This one, 119, is the longest of them all. And what that one does is it has every single letter 8 times. So you have 8 verses for every single letter. So certainly if your goal is to get the alphabet out there, so that one certainly has it in much greater number. So the Asiv Tmanya, because there are 8 of them, Tmanya often. El Mishum de Ispe Poseach es Yodecha. Because if you notice in Ashrei, everything is alphabetical, but there is no line that begins with the nun. And that nun is skipped for a good reason. The Gemara is going to explain it to us right away. So it goes like this. You have, right, so you say that it says after the mem, malchus cha malchus kol amim, and then it skips. So there's no nun. There's no line that starts with a nun. So why is that? Why is it there's no line that starts with a nun? And that's sort of the key to why this one is so important. He says, right, so first of all, we're talking about the alphabetical one, right? It says that it's the Ashrei Pnimi Derech 119 has it 8 times, so one of the unique features of Ashrei, it says, Mishum Ispe Poseach es Yodecha, that you have the line Poseach es Yodecha, which means Hashem sustains everybody, everything, not just Jewish people, not just people, because Poseach es Yodecha must be l'chol chai, so everything is alive, is sustained. So maybe that's a pretty good reason to say Ashrei. But the Gemara says, Neima Halel HaGadol. So Halel HaGadol is the chapter that we say at the Tehillim where every line ends with Kili Olam Chasto. That's called Halal Gadol. So in that one, what is it there? It says Ksiba Nosei Lechem L'chol Basar. So it says in it Nosei Lechem L'chol Basar Kili Olam Chasto. So that can't be the reason. So what is it? Why is it that this one is so special? It says El Mishum Isvei Tarki, because there are two reasons. Omar Rabbi Yochanan Malo Ne'emar Nun Ba'ashrei. Why is there no Nun? Why is there no line that begins with Nun in this prayer that we call Ashrei? Because it talks about the downfall of, the Gemara says the enemies of Israel. That's a euphemism, and there are several places in the Gemara where it's talking about misfortunes that have happened to Jewish people, and we know that Hashem doesn't do things for no good reason, and so he'll say because of the actions of the enemies of the Jews, so which is a euphemism for the Jews. And the quotation here is going to be from the prophet Amos. So since we're going a little bit deeper today, we're going to go into the prophet. We're going to see what does he have to say, what's going on over there. So in Amos, he says, this is in chapter 5, verse 2. He says, first of all, Shimu es hadavar hazeh, asher anochi nosei alechem. Listen to that which, pay attention to what I'm about to say to you. He says, and how am I saying this thing to you? He says, Kina Beis Yisrael, because it is Kina, we say Kinos on Tishba, Lamentations, right? And what is it that's going to befall the Jews? Nafla lo tosif kum besulas Yisrael, that she will fall and not rise, the young maiden of Israel. Nitcha ad mosa ein mekimo, that there will be no one to lift her up. And why is this one in particular singled out? Because this is the only place where a tragedy is mentioned regarding Jewish people, but there's no remedy listed. There's no correction. There's no place where you can it will recover, because it says nafla lo tosif kum, that she will not rise again. Say b'marav mitartzi law. So in Eretz Yisrael, they explain it. Hachi nafla lo tosif limpol od kum besulas Yisrael. So they say that they break up the sentence. So he says nafla lo tosif, that the falling will not stop. That will stop. Then it says kum Yisrael, that the Jewish woman, the Jewish nation, basically will rise. So Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, afilu hachi, even so. Chaza David was Samcham Baruch HaKodesh. So Amos lived a long time after David, and yet David is quoting him. It's because David had heavily inspiration, and he says that he saw it with his Ruach HaKodesh, and yeah. Because it says Somech Hashem l'chol anaflim, because Hashem will, the next pasuk in Ashrei is Somech Hashem l'chol anaflim. Hashem supports all those who fall. So even though there's no nun in there, because David didn't want to put in a pasuk that could have such an unfortunate outcome, but he does, in a sense, correct it by putting in there the next line, Somech. So Amar Rabbi Elazar bar Ravina. So Rabbi Elazar bar Ravina said, Godol ma shenemar b'Michoel yoser ma shenemar b'Gavriel. So he says that so we're quoting something else. So we said this is something that happens fairly frequently in the Gemara, where a particular combination of people are making a statement, and the Gemara is quoting them. But there are only a few times that this is done, so we'll put them all together. It may not necessarily have anything to do with what we're talking about, but since we had this combination of Rabbi Elazar quoting Rabbi Avina, we put it in here as well. So before we get to that, I want to do a little bit of the Rashi. And if you remember how our page is set up, right? So we have the main body of the text in the center, and then we have the Rashi on one side and Tosfos on the other. So on our particular page, the Rashi is on the left-hand side, closer to the center of the page. And if you take a look, you go down. Where it says, first of all, that we learned that Ashrei is said 3 times a day, right? That this is an important thing. So it says in the Rashi, he says Shalosh Pamim, and if you look at the Rashi in its Rashi script, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 lines up in the Rashi part where it says Shalosh Pamim. It says Kenege Shalosh Tefilos. That corresponds with Shachris, Mincha, and Mariv. So even though we don't say Ashrei and Mariv, but we do say it 3 times a day, so that's kind of representing the three times that we pray. So there's the Isbe Tarte, then it says that they're mentioned 2 times, and it says Asiba Aleph Beis, because it comes with the alphabet. So Yeshbo Shevach Hanafas Mozon L'Chol Chai. And so there's 2, what are the 2 attributes that Ashrei has? First of all, it's alphabetical, which makes it a special thing. And it has the idea that everybody is supported, everybody's fed. So Afilu Hachi, says Rashi, Afal Pi, Shehesik Nun Mipnei Nefila Sheba, even so, because the Nun is left out, because of the fact that the Jewish nation fall, right? We just read that pasuk from Amos, right? Lo Ava L'Ramaza Chazer V'Ramas Smicha Nefila Hachakam. So basically, David tries to correct, like he's upset that you have a place in the Nach where the fall of the Jews is mentioned, but not their recovery. So he skips that line and he puts his own line in as sort of as a correction to it. So just to give you an idea of how it all works. So we have the basic, the text of the Gemara, and then we have Rashi is giving us his explanation as well. And we try to also refer to where it is appearing in the Tanakh. So going on a little bit, so we're saying that we're talking about the angel Michael and Gabriel. So we said Amar Rabbi Elazar Bar Avina. He says Gadol Mash Amar Michael Yosu Mash Nemar Gabriel. So the mentions of Michael are considered greater than Gabriel. Why? He said because it says with regarding Michael, V'yoaf Eli Echad Min Asurafim. So it says one of the angels flew towards me, right? The Elu Gabi Gabriel. That's talking about Gabriel, whereas he accomplished his mission in one flight. Then it says Oish Gabriel Asher Reisi B'Chazon. So this Gabriel who I saw in a vision, but because he did his job with one flight. He didn't have, we were talking about airfare to Israel, right? You can get a better price maybe if you go with a 1-stop or a 2-stop, but if you want non-stop, you're going to pay a little more. So I guess in the case of Gabriel, it was a 1-stop. So my mashma, the high echad Michael, because echad 1 is Michael. So Michael, he did his job took a 1-stop flight. So Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Asi echad ksiv. It says that the word echad is mentioned in terms of the mission and in terms of the angel himself. He says, V'yoaf Eli, and he said he flew towards me. Echad min Asrafim, one of the holy angels, and that was Michael. So Ksiv Hasam, Hainu V'hine Michael Echad min Asarim Arishonim, Bola Azroni. So, and again, this word echad appears regarding Michael, that he was one of those. So that means they sort of extrapolate from this that he fulfilled his mission in a single flight. So Tana Michael ba'achas Gavriel b'shtayim. So Gavriel, when he accomplished his missions, it took him two, because what was Gavriel doing? Gavriel was coming to mete out justice, and so the idea was to give the people a chance to maybe, instead of having one quick flight, he allowed for a layover, right? So if we go to Israel, we have to stop in Newark for 3 or 4 hours, right? So during those 3 or 4 hours, maybe you have a chance to think about what you've done. So that's why he has a stopover. Whereas Michael, he was coming to give good news, so he would go right away with a one stop. Eliyahu Ba'arba, Eliyahu, when he's coming to bring, Eliyahu's prophecy was a lot of times not so pleasant. So he took 4 stops along the way before he reached his mission, his goal. Umalach HaMaves, and the angel of death, Bishmona. It's almost like allegorically saying that Hashem is reluctant to carry out the mission done by the Malach HaMaves, the angel of death, right? So but when there is a plague, in that case, it's just one trip. Amar Yeshua ben Levi. So Yeshua ben Levi said, "Afal pi shekara Adam." So even though he was Hashem was called Adam, mitzvah lakroso al. Oh, so when a person says Kriya Shema, even though afilu shekara Adam Kriya Shema, that you have the abbreviation Kufshin, right? Kriya Shema bebeis hakneses in shul. Mitzvah lakrosa al mitaso. It's still a mitzvah to read Kriya Shema on your bed. Amar Rabbi Yossi. So Rabbi Yossi says, Mikra. Where is a pasuk that you can show me that will reference this idea that we're going to say Shema in shul, and yet we still say it in shul? So he says, what is that? So he quotes a pasuk. He's Mikra. He says, Rigzu v'al techato imru b'lavavchem al mishkavchem v'domo self. So that's translated as tremble and do not sin, reflect in your hearts while on your bed, and be silent. So you've got four different things that are at play here. Amar Rav Nachman, so Rav Nachman said that im Talmud Chachamhu, if the person is learned, is a scholar, ein sorech, he doesn't necessarily have to say Kriya Shema because he's already got it in his mind, because he's got his learning is on his mind all the time. Amar Abaye, so Abaye says, Af Talmud Chacham iboy leila meimar chad psuka derachami. Even if a person is a scholar, he should say something when he's on his bed, he's ready to go to sleep. And we today, there's nobody today that has the wisdom and the scholarship that they had. So everybody's supposed to say Kriya Shema when they go to bed. You should not think that I am a scholar, my Torah study is always in my mind, and therefore I don't have to, because you want to go to bed thinking that. So now let's see, how does it actually work? So Abaye gives you an example of a verse that somebody could say. He said, "Kagon b'yodcha af kibruchi potisosi Hashem kelanes." That I, like you hear the kids say, "Now I lay me down to sleep. I pray to the Lord my soul to keep." Right. So it's the same thing, that he's entrusting his life and his spirit to God. Hopefully that he's going to wake up in the next morning. Amar Rabbi Levi Bar Chama, Amar Rabbi Shimon Lakish. So now we're going to explain the 4 ways that this particular pasuk relates to what we should be thinking about at bedtime. He said, in the name of Reish Lakish, La'olam yargiz adam yetzer tov yetzer hara. So a person should always work hard to make sure that we have 2 natures in a person. We have yetzer tov, yetzer hara, right? Yetzer tov we can translate as our conscience, right? It's helping us to do the right thing, Yetzer hara is the evil inclination. So you should always try to get your conscience to work against your bad ideas, right? So, and then if you do that, you won't be, it says, im nitzcho mutav. And if it works, if you've been able to subdue the Yetzer hara by thinking good thoughts and thinking about what's the correct thing to do, then it's good. Then you've accomplished your goal. However, im lav, but if not, then yasak b'Torah. She should study Torah. So study some Torah before you go to bed. So when you're ready to go to sleep, you'll be thinking the important thoughts, right? Shenemar, because it's imru b'levavchem. So say it in your heart. Okay? Im nitzcho mutav. If you overcome the evil inclination by Torah study, then that's good. But suppose not, right? So im lav, but if not, yikra kriya shema, then you say kriya shema, because shenemar, because it says al mishkavchem, on your bed. Im nitzcho, if that works, if now your mind is settled and you're going to bed with good thoughts, then that's good. But if not, im lav yiskrolo es hamisa. If not, think about your death, which is to come, and shenemar, as it says, v'domo sela, and then you will be silent. So at the end of your life, you're silent. So in other words, that when you're going to bed, you should try to go to bed with the right kind of mindset. And what this verse, this pasuk is giving you, is sort of giving you an instruction sheet, like how to do it, or as Rabbi Teitz used to say that the Torah in some ways is like a prescription from a doctor, that you follow these steps, then you're going to be able to carry it out. And last week we read the 10 Commandments, and so the 10th one is lo tachmod, do not covet. And so Rabbi Teitz, he should rest in peace, used to say, how can you tell a person what to think? And back in those days, he said, if my neighbor has a new town car and I'm driving an old jalopy, how can I not want to have that town car? So today, I guess a town car is not so expensive. Maybe people have a Lexus or whatever. So he said, how is that possible? He said, because the way that the pasuk is written, it says, do not covet your neighbor, your neighbor's wife, his donkey, his house, and everything that he has. Because you might want to have that town car, but you have to know the whole package, because you can't have what your neighbor has without being your neighbor, and nobody wants that. Nobody wants to be another person. No matter what's going on in your life, nobody actually wants to be that other person. So that's just an example of how the Torah is a prescription. Going on. Amar Rabbi Levi bar Chama, Amar Rabbi Shimon Lakish. He said, "My diksiv." What is the meaning of the pasuk that says, "Vet no'lecha es luchos even b'Torah b'mitzvah asher kasavti l'chorosa"? So what does it mean that I'll give you these stone tablets and the Torah and the commandments? It seems like it's all, you have the tablets. It's right. It's all there. What do you mean? What are these other things that are being added on? So how do we understand it? Luchos, that's the tablets. That's the actually stone tablets themselves. Ela Seres Dibros. These are those 10 sayings, or we could say the 10 commandments, that are actually engraved into the stone. Then it says Torah. Torah, that is the written Torah, which we have. We call the Chumash, the Torah. HaMitzvah, which is mitzvah. What does it mean? Zeh Mishnah. That's the Mishnah, right? So we're learning, we start with the Mishnah, then we expand it with the Gemara. Asher Kasavti, which I have written, that means Elu Nevi'im, that means the prophets and the later writings, which include Tehillim and Shir Hashirim and so on. The Horosam, to teach them, Zeh Gemara, that is the Gemara which we are learning. Melamed Yekulam Nitnu L'Moshe Misina, that teaches us that everything was given to Moshe on Sinai. So some of it was written at that moment, at that time, right? That was the Luchos themselves, and then the written Torah. The Nevi'im came along later, which were written later, but they were all that information was given to Moshe at the beginning. And the Talmud, which we're learning, the Mishnah and the Gemara, was given at that time, but it was not written down. It was meant to be transmitted orally. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak, Kol HaKori Kriya Shema Al Mitaso. So everybody who reads Kriya Shema, says Kriya Shema on his bed or inside his bed when he's ready to go to sleep, Ki'ilu Oches Cherev Shel Shtei Pios B'yodo. It's as if he has a sword with two mouths. So there's a sword with two edges on both sides of the edge of the sword. So what are the two for? What are they? Shenemar, because it says, Romamos Kel Begronam Mecherev Kipios B'yodam. Because the praises of Hashem are in our throat, in our mouth, and in the hand they work as a double-edged sword. So it does two things for us. My mashma, what is it coming to teach you? Amar Marzutra, Vitema Ravashi. So Marzutra, some say Rashi says it, Meresha Dinyana, the beginning of this topic that we're talking about at Kriya Shema Diksiv, it says, it's Yalzu Hasidim B'Kavod, Yeranu Mishkavo Sam. So here we have the reference to Mishkav. Mishkav is the bed, right? So the tzaddikim, the righteous ones, shall have their glory, their honor, right? And they'll sing happily in their beds. And then right away it says after that, Ramamos Kel Begrono, Mecher Pipios Biodam. And now you have the reference again to the double-edged sword. So it's the thought and the study, and we're doing this just as we're about to go to bed. The Amar Rabbi Yitzchak, another thing that Rabbi Yitzchak said, is Kol HaKori Kriya Shema Al Mitaso. Anybody who reads Kriya Shema on his bed, right? So at bedtime, Shnemar. So that person who reads Kriya Shema at that point, Mazikin B'Delan Hemenu. Okay, now we're back to the demons, and we talked about this before. That the Kriya Shema sort of it wards them off. They're not going to attack him. Shinamar, Ubenei Reshef Yagbiu Uf. And this Reshef means the spirit will soar, they're going to fly away. So it's talking about the demons that they'll be pushed away from your bed. Ve'ein Uf Ela Torah. And Uf is also a reference to the Torah. And how do we know that? Shinamar, because it says elsewhere, Hasoif Einecha Bo Ve'einenu. So if you close your eyes to the Torah, so people who are not diligent in the study of Torah, they're going to lose it, right? So that's why we need to be studying daily, because what we learned yesterday, if we're not keeping up, it kind of disappears from us. So we have to be always involved in it. So Ve'ein Reshef Ela Mazikin, they're talking about again these not only to demons. He says Shnemar Mazei Rav Ulachume Reshef V'Ketet Meriri. That Rav is a famine. So if there's a famine, and then you have the battles, whatever it is with the Reshef and whatever that means. So there's another way to look at it. Amar Shimon Lakish, he says, Kol Osek Torah, anybody who is studying Torah, Yusurin B'Deilin Himenu. So this is a good one. Everybody does not necessarily believe in demons, but we all know that Yusurim are, a lot of times they're translated as sometimes minor inconveniences, or maybe worse. But every time something that you do, you reach into your pocket for a quarter for the parking meter, and nickel comes out. So my Rebbe used to say, that's Yusurim. It's a little thing. It's a little annoyance.
Like a kapara? Only a minor one?
Like a minor one, yeah, in a certain way, and of course major ones as well. But those things which happen to you that are not pleasant for you, those are called Yusurim. And so Reish Lakish is saying that what is the Torah keeping away? Not necessarily demons, but maybe the Torah is keeping away the Yusurim. So he says, right, so, and it's only the Torah, so Ein Uf El Torah. So he says, Shinamar, because the pasuk says, Hesoif Enecha Vov Ve'enenu. You close your eyes and it's gone, right? Ein Reshev El Yusurim. So the word Reshev says Reish Lakish means Yusurim, because it says, Mizei Rav Luchume Reshef. And there's nothing worse than a famine, right? Where there's no food to eat. So that's considered, he said, that's Reshef. So now the Gemara wants to examine this a little bit and try to find out what are they talking about, that study of Torah prevents Yisurim and so on. Amalei Rabbi Yochanan. So Rabbi Yochanan said to Reish Lakish, his brother-in-law, Hafilu Tinocha Shoves Rabbim Yodinoso, but even little kids study that pasuk, they know it. Shnei Marcus says, V'yomar im shemo tishma l'kol Hashem Elokecha. It says that if you listen to Hashem, right, v'yosher b'inav taseh, and you do what is correct, what is straight in the eyes of God, ve'ezanta l'mitzvosa v'shmarta kol chukav, and you listen to the mitzvos and you pay attention, you observe the commandments of Hashem. Kol ha'machala asher samti b'Mitzrayim lo asim alecha, ki ani Hashem rofecha. Right, so we learn that in the Haggadah, right? All the afflictions, all the punishments that Mitzrayim, the Egyptians received, if we conduct ourselves the right way, we're not going to get them, and that's why they're all spelled out, right? And that's why in the Haggadah they have a difference of opinion. How many makos, right? How many makos did they actually receive? So was it 10? Was it 50? Was it 250? And we try to make it as big a number as possible, because if we conduct ourselves properly, we're not going to get any of those. So it's better to have that the Egyptians got a lot. So, and he says, because I am Hashem, I'm your doctor. I'm the one who's going to bring you a cure. So he says, all school kids know that. So what do you come to tell me here? So Ella, Kol after Torah, anybody who has the opportunity to study, and so I guess a lot of people in our working years, we don't have so much time, but as we get to the point where we don't need to be working so much, it's an opportunity to study. Ve'ena osek, and he does not study. That's not so good. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, maybe all of Yisurim, V'chuarim, V'ochrim. So in that case, Hashem will bring ugly punishments to him, which will make. Pardon?
What's offering?
Which will make him ugly. So.
The ochrim means that make him ugly.
Right, make him repulsive, because the word mechor means
I got.
Right.
And Yisurim, you explained, but ochrim.
Right. So in other words, it makes him. Ochrim makes him.
Ochrim or I see.
Right.
I got you. Sorry.
Right. Shenamar, because it says ne'alamti dumiyah hakashesi mitov v'chayei nichar. Is because, what does it mean ne'alamti? I was quiet, right? And I was.
Ne'alamti is like I disappeared.
Right, I disappeared, right? I disappeared and I became silent, right?
Yeah.
And then my pain, the pain, right,
Yeah.
became ugly, became repulsive. Ein tov el Torah, and the word tov is only relating to Torah. Shenamar, because the pasuk says, Ki lekach tov. Right, we say this when we put the Torah away. Ki lekach tov nasati lechem, Torah sial tazovu. Right, because I've given you something good, which is the Torah. Do not abandon it.
This is so cool. I love this stuff.
What?
No, it's just so cool. The connections.
Yeah, I love it, and
I do.
so the whole that's why I'm saying that everything is here. It's all in the Gemara, and it just depends on your attitude toward it, and so that's why we did a little bit of outside. We looked a little bit into the prophets. We'll see what they say. We looked a little bit at the commentaries, because everything is here. Amar Rabbi Zera, Itema Rabbi Chanina bar Papa. So Rabbi Zera, and some people say it was Rabbi Chanina bar Papa who said it. Bo re'eh shelo kemidas HaKadosh Baruch Hu midas basav v'dam. Take a look. See how Hashem conducts himself with the world compared to how human beings react with one another. He says, midas basav v'dam mocher chayfetz l'chavero. If you maybe there were times in your life that you sold something you didn't necessarily want to sell. Maybe you weren't going to get the price for your house you were hoping to get for it, but you have another house that you wanted to move into, you need more bedrooms, whatever it is, so you take the loss. So you're not happy, right? You sold the house, but you're not happy with the deal that you made. And a lot of times if you have something of value that you really don't want to sell, right? But you have to, so you're sad in a certain way, right? You sell something that's important to you. Mocher atzei v'lokeach sameach. So the seller is not happy, he's sad. The buyer's happy because he got something special, something of value. But how is it with Hashem? He says, Aval HaKadosh Baruch Hu Eino Kain, but it's not that way with God. Because no sam lehem Torah Yisrael v'samach. Hashem gave us what is there in the world that's more precious than the Torah. Hashem gave us the Torah, and He's happy, right? So He gave us something of value, and He is happy. Shneimar, because it says, Ki lekach tov nasati lachem, Torah siyal tozu. So it is something special that I gave you, right? And do not abandon the Torah. And we'll stop right here. Continue, God willing, next week.